Hello YouTube and welcome back to World of Warships with Wadres again, and today's video I am going to be giving you a review of the Tier 9 Dutch, or I guess I could say European nation destroyer, the Friesland at Tier 9. And, well, I'm going to be honest, I went out and I bought this ship outright from the premium shop instead of building up the FXP, simply because I'm still trying to save up FXP for the next ship in line, which is going to be the, I think it's the Tier 9 or the Tier 10 German battle cruiser, the Siegfried. So I'm kind of wanting to save my free EXP for that sucker when it comes out. Now, the Friesland, on the other hand, is an interesting little destroyer to have in hand. For starters, she is the first destroyer in World of Warships to not have torpedoes. So she lacks that close-in sort of last-ditch effort sort of armament that all the other destroyers in-game have. And, well, of course, there's also the whole nice bonus of not having to deal with any long-range torpedo spammers from this ship either. So there is that to be a nice little bonus for players who are concerned about, say, worrying about destroyers and just having to dodge friendly torpedoes at longer ranges. So there is that nice little bonus to have in mind again. The Friesland does have a number of qualities to her. First off, starting with her survivability, she has 17,600 hit points, which is a good, solid health pool for destroyers. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst. And it's definitely something that she will definitely get some use out of over the course of a variety of matches. And as you can see, I am showing off her excellent firepower against this Z46. That Z46 had absolutely no chance against these guns. Doubling back to the survivability of the Friesland real quick, she does have 19mm deck and side plating armor, 13mm superstructure, and 6mm turret armor, so those are just basic standard destroyer armament levels, and definitely something to keep in mind when you are engaging heavier targets, is, again, you just don't have incredible amounts of armor to really deal with a whole lot of incoming fire. As far as your main battery, as you've already seen me show off, this ship has a withering rate of fire with a 1.6 second reload with the captain that you're actually seeing in use for this match. The base reload is 1.8 seconds, and with basic firing training added on to the main battery mod 2, her reload is actually dropped down to 1.4 seconds. Now, I have not added a commander onto this ship yet that has Adrenaline Rush skill. I actually do not have a European skill commander that's that high. In fact, the highest skill commander was actually on my Bleskovica, and he only had 7 points. He's actually the commander who's going to be on the ship for the second and third of my review battles. The base reload time of these main battery guns is 1.8 seconds. They reach out to 12.3 kilometers baseline and can be pushed out to 16.7 kilometers after AFT and Fire Control System Mod 2. At 12.3 kilometers, they also have a 100 meter dispersion. And the HE shells do 1,750 damage with 19 millimeters of penetration baseline. And they also do 2,100 damage with AP shells. Now, here's the thing though. The main battery, while they do reload nice and quick, and it is necessary for them to reload nice and quick, you only have 2 double 12 centimeter or 120 millimeter cannons. So, you've only got 2 main battery guns, or 4 total if you consider the fact that these are double turrets. But again, you just don't have an incredible amount of armament to really use when you're shooting at the enemy. Which again is why it's important that these guns reload quickly and just are basically kept hot as you're using them. And that can be very limiting, again, in the fact, especially when you consider the fact that the Friesland does not have torpedoes. So again, you are relying solely on these very quick loading main battery guns to do basically all of your damage. And there is an argument to be made for opting for inertia fuse high explosive shells for this ship, primarily because that 19 millimeters of penetration, especially once you start talking, say, tier 10 cruisers and battleships, is really not enough to get a whole lot of penetrating damage. So that is one of the considerations that you have to keep in mind when you're working on your captain's skills upgrading this ship over time. Now, do not let some of this ship's lack of guns dissuade you from the AA battlefield either, because this ship, her 120mm guns are dual-purpose guns, so they do definitely take part in the AA defense of this ship, and her numbers are not exactly small, even for the simple AA armament. She has two zones, a mid and a long zone. The mid zone is 0.1 to 3.5 kilometers, and the long zone is 0.1 to 6 kilometers. But the DPS numbers are what everybody's really going to care about here. For the mid zone, so out to 3.5 and in, she does 312 damage per second. For the long range, she does 162 damage per second, and that's just the continuous damage. She does 1,820 damage per flak burst, and she has 6 bursts in a salvo. For her bonuses, with the November Echo Set 7 flag, that goes up to 328 DPS for the mid-range, 170 DPS for the long range, and 1,911 damage within the flak bursts. And of course, this is also not taking into consideration the continuous or flak burst increases from AA Mod 2 or AFT. I do not have commanders to put AFT onto this ship yet. Again, the highest skill commander I have is a 7-pointer, and I don't have the Elite Commander EXP to spread around here either. And I also do not feel like AA Mod 2 is particularly necessary for this ship with some of her numbers. As far as her priority sector reinforcement, she does 5% instant damage, which is constant for all destroyers, 135% reinforcement, with a 10-second preparation time and a 10-second reinforcement time. As far as maneuverability, this ship has a 36-knot base speed. She does not get the engine boost consumable, so that is her maximum regardless. The only bonus you can really get out of this ship is if you apply the Sierra Mike flag, which brings her max speed up to 37.8 knots. She has a reasonably tight 620 meter turning circle, though unfortunately it was not quite tight enough to evade the Izumo earlier in this match, and I do apologize to him quite profusely. I did hope to slow down and not tag him, but I did anyway. And the rudder shift on this ship is 4 seconds base, with a 1.9 second rudder shift by my calculation, after applying Steering Gears Mod 2 and Steering Gears Mod 3 if you opt to go for a Maneuverability build, which is definitely a very strong and viable build for this ship, considering some of her other statistics. For concealment, the Friesland is seen at 7.1 kilometers on the surface. She is seen by aircraft at 2.6 kilometers, and when firing the main battery in smoke, she is seen at 3 kilometers. Which definitely saved my ass more than once in this match, because, that Sovietsky Soyuz that was a little too close for comfort was just outside of that smoke detect range, and oh boy did I need him to not be staring at me too much. Anyway, first match, and this is the best match of my 3 review matches, I might add. 161,000 damage done, 240,000 credits earned, 6,158 EXP, 385 free EXP. I landed 441 main battery hits, which is more than I've seen in some cases in my Harugumo. 4 aircraft shot down, 2 ship kills, 3 in-caps, 8 fires, which is a nice solid number for most destroyers, and just good solid numbers all around. We also had 688 base EXP earned for the match, and, well, given that I was the only destroyer of the 2 players on this team, it was not difficult for me to come out at the top of the team regardless. And I definitely put in a good chunk of work as well. 90,913 damage done to the enemy Sovietsky Soyuz, as well as landing the kill. 18,610 damage to the Z-46, 41,006 to the Alsace, and 9,800 damage done to the enemy Lion. And, I mean, that Sovietsky Soyuz, where the majority of that damage came from, was the fires that I set on that ship. In fact, fires made up almost half of the damage that I did overall for the match. 68,000 done with high explosive, 18,000 done with armor piercing, 75,000 damage almost done with fires. So yeah, that says a lot about where the damage comes from in this ship. As far as potential damage tanked, I absorbed a little over 250,000 damage that was never actually connected with the ship. No spotting damage. Did spot 2 ships initially, however, and I did also get a number of capture points. Ship also absorbed directly 16,230 damage, which is a little bit shy of the max for this ship, so I definitely used my health pool as much as I could. Net take-home earnings, 204,000, actually almost 205,000 credits. And I was running some good combat bonuses, but the big one was that I did have some a nice 200% income from the Friesland bonus mission. So that did give me a huge income chain for this ship. Plus I also got 1,000 EXP for completing a specific combat mission as well. Commander also came away from the match with 6,271 EXP, and that brought the commander that I got with the ship up to 4 points. That was 1 point for a single match, so hey, I was happy to get that. But considering this was a 3 skill point captain, he only had last stand and preventative maintenance on him, so there really were no major ship bonuses here. Yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind. I was working with a 3-skill commander on that first match. There were no major changes to the reload or anything on this ship from the commander in any stretch. However, for the second match here, I had looked at my Błyskawica and realized that commander has 6 points on him. So yes, I switched my Błyskawica commander onto the Friesland, and I switched the 4-pointer down to the Błyskawica. Błyskawica, I honestly just don't use that often. I've never found her to be quite as phenomenal a ship as people said she was. That may just be me. Personally, she's just not my cup of tea. The Friesland, however, I find to operate very similar to the Harugumo, minus torpedoes, and, well, considering I almost rarely use my Harugumo's torpedoes anyway, it's no real loss. So, there's that. I'm just glad that the Friesland has smoke, and that's really the only thing she needs to excel as far as I'm concerned. Especially considering just how quickly these guns reload. Now, one of the things that I am going to mention in regards to potential development of this ship is that she does definitely need skills that bring out that main battery more and more and more. So I would definitely say for a second 2-level skill, or 2-point skill, definitely go for Adrenaline Rush. That way, as this ship absorbs damage, these guns just get out even faster rates of fire. Again, because these guns are the only thing you have. You don't have torpedoes, so you definitely want to bring again, you just want to bring that trait out more and more as you level up this commander. I'm not sure I would recommend going for AFT to extend the range, simply because these shells don't really operate too incredibly well at longer ranges. I would definitely say I would definitely push opting for the massive AA fire skill, which used to be the manual AA skill, to bolster your AA defenses for those few and far between CV matches. Definitely want to bring out her AA traits a little bit better, though, as far as I would say, just because that is going to be one of her stronger traits as a destroyer, especially in this world where AA is kind of lackluster point for most destroyers. For your second 4-point skill, I would definitely consider looking at, say, either IFHE or maybe Concealment Expert. Concealment Expert would at least bring her concealment into the sub 7 kilometer range, which would just give you a little bit more of a buffer zone for detecting target, or getting your guns to bear on targets when they do detect you. But beyond that, it's up to you as to whether or not you wish to go for concealment on this ship or not. I'm not 100% sold on its viability for her, simply because of how she operates, how she handles. IFHE, however, especially if you end up being in up-tier matches along with massive AA fire, would definitely help you out when handling, say, tier 10 battleships and cruisers. As far as any of the tier 3 skills that I would recommend, BFT is definitely there because, again, that reduces that main battery reload, brings her identity out just a little bit better. In other ways, you could definitely go for Superintendent, just to increase the number of consumable charges. And an argument could also be made for Survivability Expert, just to get a little bit more health out of her hull. As far as her recommendations for 2-point skills, I would definitely say Last Stand. She is a destroyer, and her engine and rudder tend to be rather fragile, so you do kind of want to make sure you retain some functionality on those, to say the least. So that is definitely a must-have skill for the Friesland. And I would also recommend going with Adrenaline Rush, just because, again, this ship probably is and will take damage. So definitely want to just be able to bring your guns out more and more as she does take damage with Adrenaline Rush. And you can probably easily see sub 1 second reloads on this sucker, which would be... I'm just going to come out and say it. That's a frightening rate of fire from this little ship, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. So that's one thing to have in mind. And again, that with these 120 millimeters, the amount of damage these guns do, that kind of puts her above the Harugumo in a way, as far as just the sheer damage output she has, especially once AFT really starts kicking into full gear. And of course, the only single point skill that I would recommend, just to try and reduce the instances in which Last Stand is necessary, I would definitely opt for Preventative Maintenance, just because, honestly, you're in a ship that you know if it's spotted, it's going to be shot at. You don't need to be warned, as far as I'm concerned, of incoming fire, or really how many people are even targeting you. You just need to know that as long as you're spotted, you're going to be shot at, and that's basically some not counterintuitive, it's intuitive information for any destroyer anyway. You don't need to know how many people are looking at you to shoot at you. You just need to know that you're going to be shot at anyway. As long as you're detected, I can guarantee you're going to be taking fire. And if anybody has even a grain of intelligence with them, if a Friesland is spotted, they're going to be shooting at it, because it is a scary little ship to have shooting back at them. Now, coming down to the experience I've had in this ship so far, I can definitely say I've had a very mixed experience, to say the least. And that's primarily because, again, she does rely on her guns for literally everything. You can't drop torpedoes at a distant target and hope they hit. You also aren't exactly relying on torpedoes to do any of that devastating close-in damage that you would see from most other destroyers. If it's not something that she can do with her guns, quite simply, she's not going to be doing it. This means that you're going to be seeing, especially in later matches where, say, the only thing you're facing off against are battleships, you're going to be seeing a lot of shatters from these high explosive shells, or non-penetrations, however you decide to term them. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is as you start getting down to just more armored targets, you're going to start seeing a lot more non-damaging or low-damage shots. And really not an incredible amount that you're going to be able to do to prevent that either, because that is your primary damage-dealing weapon. The only thing that you can really hope for as far as damage against more heavily armored targets is setting fires on those pesky heavily armored battleships, like I'm doing to this Lion. In fact, the only reason I'm going to do as much damage as I end up doing to the Lion is because of the sheer number of fires that I set. And that does bring me to one point that I missed a little bit earlier, talking about the main battery of the Friesland's guns, is that they do have a reasonably high fire chance for a destroyer, which honestly makes sense considering the simple fact that she only has her guns again to rely on. So I think they gave her guns just a better damage overall, a better fire chance overall, just because they wanted the ship to be able to do something that set her apart from most of the other destroyers. On top of the simple fact that with the sheer rate of fire of this ship, the amount of chances she has to set fires on any single ship with these guns is honestly quite high to begin with. I mean, you can see that I set a number of fires on that Lion in very quick succession, as long as I knew where I needed to aim to get those fires set. So that is one thing to keep in mind, is if you pick up the Friesland, you are going to see widely varied matches in her, depending on both the tiers you get landed with and just your overall targeting, your luck in setting fires, things like that. So just kind of keep in mind, this ship, while she is a good little tier 9 ship, she is still going to see highly varied matches just by the nature of how she operates. And I can definitely see that being a turnoff for some players, because they want to be able to see those high damage games, those high damage rolls that this ship just isn't going to get on a regular basis. Anyway, final match, 85,765 damage done against 2 targets. I only got to hit both the Friesland and the Lion this match. I did come home with 200,867 credits gross earnings for the match for credits, 223 main battery hits, 2 ship kills, 7 fires. That fire chance is definitely going to be something that saves this ship's ass. Also, 2,700 EXP. As far as base earnings, 529 base EXP, which is still respectable. It's not a bad match by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not as good as I probably would have seen maybe with another destroyer. And actually, considering the reliance on fires in the main battery, I probably saw more damage than if I had been in any other destroyer, simply because torpedoes tend to cut away a lot of that repair potential for battleships too. So there's that to keep in mind. As far as potential damage, I came close to 100,000 for this match. it definitely could have been higher, but again, I just didn't have the time or the targets to really draw too much fire in the long run. I did absorb almost all of my ship's health worth of hit points, so that is, I did come very, very close to death, dare I say, but I definitely did the job that I set out to do. As far as actual take-home, 91,000 credits net income for the match, which is nice, solid earnings. And the commander earned 5,450 EXP, also earned 1,169 free EXP for the match. Anyway, that is the Friesland at Tier 9. She does have some very good, respectable numbers behind her. Just keep in mind, she has very highly variable matches just due to the nature of how she's going to operate. Anyway, on that note, I suppose I shall go ahead and let everybody go. I hope you have found this review informative and useful. On that note, I hope to catch you all again later. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you are new to my content, and to get easy access to more as I put out more videos. Anyway, have a good one. Happy hunting, folks. Stay safe out there.